Chosen one, those who stole from you will burn in hell. You were never ordinary. You were never meant to be silenced, diminished, or controlled. The ones who moved against you thought they were playing a game, thought they could take what was yours and walk away untouched. But they didn't realize who they were dealing with. The universe does not overlook injustice. Fate does not forget. When they schemed, when they manipulated, when they tried to break you, they thought you were just another obstacle, just another pawn in their hands. But you are not like the others. You were chosen. Your path is protected, your energy is sacred, and every attempt to sabotage you was never a step toward their victory. It was the blueprint of their own demise. They thought they won. They thought they got away with it. But the fire is coming, and now, one by one, they will learn what happens when you betray someone who was never meant to fall. No force disrupts the delicate symmetry of existence without consequence. The hidden mechanisms of the universe record every action, unseen yet unerring in their precision. There is no deception that goes unnoticed, no manipulation that passes without ripple. Those who believed they could shape reality to their liking, twisting fate to serve their desires, have already sealed their own undoing. They mistook silence for absence, assuming that because retribution did not strike instantly, it would never come. But time does not erase violations, it collects them. And when one dares to stand in the way of something destined, they do not merely cross a person, they step into opposition against something far greater than themselves. Their descent does not arrive with thunder. It starts as an imperceptible shift, opportunities slipping through their grasp, doors once open, now bolted shut. The certainty they once carried begins to falter, the ease they moved with begins to wane. What was once simple becomes arduous. What was once in reach now drifts further away. They dismiss their actions as trivial, a slight manipulation, a minor deception, a quiet act of interference too small to matter. To them, it was nothing more than a tactic, a competitor feeding falsehoods to tip the scales in their favor, a confidant distorting reality just enough to shift the narrative, a bystander pretending innocence while fueling whispers meant to dim another's light. It was effortless, second nature even, until it wasn't. Until the weight of their own decisions began folding in on them, pressing from all sides like an unseen tide. The balance of existence does not tolerate corruption without response. The moment they overstepped, something imperceptible shifted, a fracture in the unseen, a tremor through the fabric of their own design. The very forces they sought to manipulate turned back on them. No longer an obedient tool, but a storm they could no longer command. This was no ordinary transgression. This was an attempt to rewrite a course that was never theirs to dictate. And in doing so, they marked themselves not with a visible brand, but with a consequence that does not waver, a weight that does not lift. The ink has already dried on the decree of balance, and nothing they do now will erase it. They bask in their supposed triumph, mistaking stolen ground for solid footing. They convince themselves they have won, that their cunning secured them an unshakable position. Their smiles are wide, their laughter effortless, their confidence unwavering, at least on the surface. But beneath it all, a fracture spreads, subtle yet relentless. The satisfaction they expected never arrives. The thrill of deception fades too quickly. They were certain victory would bring them fulfillment, but instead, there is only a gnawing emptiness, a hollow silence where joy should be. They tell themselves it's temporary, that in time, the discomfort will pass. Yet deep in the recesses of their mind, a whisper lingers, the undeniable truth. that what they possess was never meant to be theirs. You are here for a reason. If you feel the call, answer it. Click Join to unlock exclusive content, deep insights, and a powerful community. This isn't just a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the chosen. The weight of stolen gains is never light. At first, it's an afterthought, a fleeting moment of doubt, an unshakable feeling that something is missing. Then slowly, it grows. The rewards they schemed for fail to satisfy. The validation they sought turns to dust the moment they grasp it. Rest does not come easily. Sleep is no longer a refuge, but a restless cycle of unease. And when their mind drifts, it always lands on the one they wronged, the one who refused to be broken, the one who remains unyielding despite their best efforts. They watch from the shadows, expecting to see weakness, but instead, they witness resilience. The realization sets in: nothing was taken from the one they sought to undermine. They only robbed themselves. The unraveling does not begin with destruction, but with discomfort, a lingering doubt, a creeping hesitation, a subtle shift in the air around them. Something is different. Something is off. The universe does not grant peace to those who disrupt its balance. The signs appear in whispers: a missed opportunity, a misstep they cannot afford, an inexplicable sense that their grasp is slipping. They brush it off as coincidence, an unfortunate streak of bad luck. But misfortune does not scatter aimlessly. It follows a pattern, and soon the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Their once flawless execution begins to falter. Precision turns into oversight, certainty into second-guessing. The force they set into motion, believing they could control it, has turned against them. What was once effortless now collapses in their hands. The influence they once wielded evaporates. The admiration of others turns to indifference. Their once loyal allies drift away without explanation. The more they struggle to reclaim what they've lost, the faster it slips through their fingers. They try to resist, to rebuild, to regain their footing. But the weight presses heavier with each passing day. The whispers in the back of their mind grow louder. It is not just exhaustion. It is not just stress. It is something deeper, something irreversible. They have not merely lost control. They have been unmade by their own design. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6:7. Imagine a man planting seeds in the earth, believing he can choose the harvest. He buries deception, waters it with arrogance, and waits, convinced that he will reap power, success, and control. But the soil does not lie, and the harvest does not forget. What was sown in darkness will rise in the light. And now, the reaping has begun. They thought they could manipulate the seasons, bending the laws of cause and effect to suit their desires. They mistook delay for escape, mistook silence for absence. But justice is not on their timeline. What they failed to understand is that the forces at work are not chasing them. They are swallowing them whole. It is not a storm they can outrun, not a battle they can fight their way out of. This is spiritual gravity. What they set into motion has become the very force that is now pulling them under. They keep pushing forward, desperate to regain control, convinced that if they just move fast enough, think sharp enough, scheme harder, they can break free. But every step they take is met with resistance. Every plan they lay out crumbles before it can take root. The doors that once opened effortlessly are now locked tight. The opportunities they once took for granted dry up like a well in the desert. They are grasping at the air, trying to hold on to what is already slipping through their fingers. They thought they could play with fire and never get burned. Thought they could break what was sacred and never feel the consequences. Thought they could step onto a path that was never theirs and rewrite the story to their liking. But the ink was never in their hands. The moment they moved against you, the ending was already written. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. And now, no matter how hard they fight, no matter how much they resist, no matter how loudly they cry out, it's too late. Because this is not a punishment. This is a return. This is not an attack. This is an answer. What they sent out has come back. Not as a whisper, not as a warning, but as a wave. And there is no escaping the tide. The turmoil does not remain confined to their waking hours. When the night falls, their mind becomes the battlefield. The silence they once welcomed now presses against them with unbearable weight. They twist and turn, seeking rest, but the very air in the room feels wrong. Their heartbeat drums in their ears, their skin is clammy, the darkness around them feels thick, pressing in, suffocating. They tell themselves it's exhaustion, a restless night, nothing more. But when their eyes snap open at the same hour every night, they know this is not random. The shadows in the corners of the room seem to shift. The air feels charged with something unseen. Sounds that should not exist creep into their ears, too soft to be distinct, yet too persistent to ignore. The explanations they reach for slip through their fingers. Logic cannot explain why the walls feel closer, why the stillness hums with something almost alive, why every exhale feels like it is being met with something watching, waiting. They reach for certainty, but certainty no longer exists. What once felt solid now feels unreal. Their thoughts betray them, their perception twists. They had spent so much time weaving deception, yet now they are the ones trapped in illusion. What was once under their control now slips through their grasp like sand. They spoke in whispers, and now the whispers surround them. They built their power on the suffering of others, and now they are powerless against the unseen force unraveling them. No amount of pleading will bring them back to the comfort they once took for granted. The sentence has already been written, and there is no door left to escape through. It begins where they least anticipate it, with the ones who once orbited around them now slipping away. The conversations that once flowed with ease turn stilted. Interactions that were once effortless now feel strained. The people they once charmed, manipulated, and controlled no longer respond the same way. Friends who once clung to their every word now keep their distance. No grand fallout, no accusations, just a slow, deliberate withdrawal. The warmth they once received turns to indifference. Admiration fades into detachment. They try to reignite the connections, to pull people back in with the same tactics that once worked effortlessly. But nothing sparks. The energy they once wielded over others is gone, and for the first time, they realize they are no longer looked up to or feared, only tolerated, and even that is slipping. Their foot shall slide in due time. Deuteronomy 32:35. Picture a man who builds his house on sinking sand. From the outside, it looks strong, towering high, adorned with wealth and power. He stands at the top, looking down, convinced he has outsmarted the very ground beneath him. But the foundation was never solid. The deeper the roots of deception, the weaker the ground. And now, cracks have formed beneath his feet, spreading unseen, waiting for the weight of his own choices to pull him under. At first, he doesn't notice. He still walks with confidence, still carries himself as if nothing can touch him. He believes his plans are secure, his position unshakable. But piece by piece, the structure begins to crumble. What once came easily now slips through his fingers. He reaches for another promotion, another opportunity, another quick fix, but nothing holds. The same cunning that once elevated him now works against him. The same shortcuts he took have become roadblocks. The same people who once followed him without question now hesitate, their trust worn thin. They see what he refuses to see. They sense what he ignores. His name no longer carries weight. It carries suspicion. His influence no longer commands respect. It invites doubt. The doors he used to walk through with ease now remain locked. The allies who once covered for him no longer return his calls. His confidence, once his greatest weapon, has turned against him. And yet, he still tells himself this is temporary, still insists that this is just an unlucky season. A test, a rough patch he will push through. But it's not just a rough patch. This is the soil rejecting the seed. This is the ground refusing to hold the weight of what was built upon deception. The foundations he once trusted were never strong enough to last. And now, like sand slipping between his fingers, everything he built is collapsing around him. He does not see it yet, but the moment he thought he had regained control was the moment he lost it all. Every time he tries to rebuild, another fault line cracks beneath him. The same ruthless ambition that once lifted him up now leaves him standing alone. The same tactics that once put him ahead now hold him back. And no matter how much he fights, how much he schemes, how much he tries to force his way back, he cannot stop what has already begun. This isn't misfortune. This isn't bad luck. This is the weight of justice pressing down, the balance restoring itself. The same system he used to climb is now the one casting him out. The same doors he slammed shut in others' faces are now closing on him. The same isolation he forced upon another has now become his own. And the worst part, it's not over. The fall has only begun. The descent is not only professional, it reaches into every aspect of their life. What once seemed untouchable now feels unstable. The security they flaunted begins to fade, and the life they carefully curated becomes riddled with cracks. At first, it's just small inconveniences, a delayed payment, an unexpected expense, a deal falling through at the last second. Then, the setbacks multiply. Financial stability unravels before their eyes. The money they once funneled effortlessly now drains away faster than they can contain it. Every attempt to regain control only accelerates the loss. The more they tighten their grip, the more their resources slip away. They chase stability, but it evades them, always just out of reach. The system they once played so well now plays against them, and no matter how they strategize, the losses refuse to stop. A sense of cosmic imbalance begins to surface, a ledger of wrongs that refuses to be settled through mere coincidence. Their misfortunes, dismissed as isolated mishaps or unlucky turns, actually stem from a profound breach of trust. They siphoned more than material wealth. They appropriated the very essence of possibility, the goodwill that defies price. Now, every financial hiccup, a sudden inexplicable expense, a sequence of unavoidable setbacks reverberates like an overdue debt finally coming due. They persist in their frantic attempts to patch up a fractured system, insisting that these are temporary lapses. Yet beneath the surface, an insidious awareness grows. The cost of their misdeeds is mounting, leaving them unable to anchor even the slightest semblance of stability. But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Genesis 4:7. Imagine a man walking down a road he once knew well. The path was familiar, the turns predictable, the destination certain. He moved with ease, confident in his steps, never questioning where the road would take him. But one day, something changes. The road that was once straight begins to twist. Landmarks that once guided him vanish into the mist. The more he tries to move forward, the more lost he becomes. And then it hits him. This is no longer the path he once knew. That's what happens when the mind turns against itself, when deception, manipulation, and betrayal become the foundation of a person's choices. Their own thoughts become a battlefield. At first, they don't see it. They tell themselves they are still in control. They blame the setbacks on bad luck, the failures on external forces, the unraveling of their life on everything but the one person responsible, themselves. They convince themselves that if they just keep going, if they just push harder, they will find their way back to the life they once had. But the path no longer leads where they thought it would. They look around and realize that the people they once leaned on have disappeared. The relationships they took for granted have crumbled. The trust they thought was unbreakable has been shattered. They reach out, searching for a familiar hand to pull them back up, but no one is there. One by one, the bridges they burned have turned to ash. They start to feel it then, the weight pressing down, the gnawing uncertainty creeping in. Every decision that once felt easy now fills them with hesitation. Every step forward is met with doubt. They question their choices, doubt their instincts, second-guess even the simplest of actions. Their own mind becomes a prison, a maze with no clear exit. This is not an accident. This is not coincidence. This is the consequence of the moment they turned away from truth. The betrayal they thought they buried has never left them. It follows them, lingers in their shadow, whispers in the quiet moments when they are alone. And now, no matter how hard they try, no matter how much they search for someone else to blame, they cannot escape it, because the enemy they fear the most is no longer outside of them. It is within them. The chaos they created has become their reality, and the reckoning has only just begun. Their certainty has evaporated, leaving only unease in its wake. The confidence they once wore like armor has crumbled, leaving them vulnerable to the very doubts they dismissed in others. Control was their currency, but now they are bankrupt, grasping at shadows of authority that no longer exist. They had convinced themselves that they could rewrite history, that they could erase what was done and move forward unscathed. But then the truth emerges, cold and inescapable. They are not outrunning fate. They are unraveling beneath it. They see what they refused to acknowledge before. While they stumble through misfortune, you rise without effort. While their path grows steeper, yours flows with ease. They had laughed when you struggled, dismissed your pain as weakness, reveled in the chaos they created. But now, they are the ones searching for the clarity they once denied you, for the peace they stole but cannot reclaim. Desperation always leads them back. When all else fails, they return, appearing with practiced ease, as if no history exists between you. A message, a casual remark, a vague check-in, it's never genuine. They do not seek forgiveness. They seek escape. They hope that acknowledgement from you might soothe the storm that haunts them, that your presence might lessen the weight they can no longer carry. But what they fail to grasp is that their salvation does not lie in your hands. What they set in motion is beyond any apology, beyond any last-ditch effort to reverse their downfall. They mistook your grace for weakness, believing they could manipulate their way into a new outcome. But what has been written cannot be undone. For they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. Hosea 8:7. Imagine a man standing in an open field, throwing seeds into the wind, never stopping to think about what he is planting. He sows deception, waters it with arrogance, and watches as it takes root. For a time, nothing happens. The field is quiet, still, seemingly unchanged. He assumes he has escaped consequence, that he can move forward untouched. But the storm is already forming on the horizon. The whirlwind is coming, and when it arrives, it will not ask for permission. It will not bargain. It will take everything. They spent their days twisting fate to their will, bending truth until it fit their desires. They built their world on illusions, carefully constructed lies, and ruthless ambition. And for a while, it worked. They convinced themselves they were untouchable, that their plans would never fail, that they could continue manipulating outcomes forever. But what they failed to realize is that the forces that govern this world are not blind. The foundation they built was never solid. It was cracking beneath them the entire time. And now, the verdict has been delivered. The forces of balance have spoken, and there is no appeal, no second hearing, no last-minute deal to be made. This is no longer in human hands. This is not about apologies, not about remorse, not about desperate attempts to rewrite the past. The ink has dried. The door has closed. The sentence has already begun. At first, they think the worst thing that could happen is losing you, losing access to your energy, your presence, your forgiveness. But what they don't understand, what they cannot yet comprehend, is that the real punishment is far greater. Because they have not just lost you, they have lost themselves. The person they once were, the confidence they carried, the power they wielded, the effortless control they had over their world is gone. The man who stood at the top, commanding attention, securing victory after victory, no longer exists. He has been hollowed out, stripped down, left to wander a landscape of his own making. The very abilities he once took pride in, his sharpness, his wit, his influence, have withered. No matter what he does, no matter how much he tries to regain his footing, he will never be who he was before he set this destruction in motion. And now, the weight of his own actions presses down with unrelenting force. The burden is not something he can pass off to someone else. It is not something he can buy his way out of, talk his way out of, or manipulate his way through. It is a debt that cannot be settled, a price that cannot be bargained. He will search for a way back. He will try to claw his way out. He will spend sleepless nights retracing his steps, trying to find the moment it all began to unravel. But there is no undoing what has been done. No matter how fast he runs, no matter how far he tries to go, he will never outrun the weight of what he has done. The whirlwind has arrived, and it will not leave until it has taken its due. Each passing day feels heavier, the weight of something unseen, pressing down with quiet finality. The control they once wielded, the influence they once thrived on, has long since slipped from their grasp, leaving only a hollow space where certainty used to be. They believed they had orchestrated their victory, that they had rewritten the script in their favor. But what they failed to recognize was that the very moment they interfered, the outcome had already been determined. Every deception, every betrayal, every act of sabotage was never a step toward power. It was the foundation of their own undoing. There was no need for retaliation, no need for counterattacks, no need for anything at all, because the force they tried to manipulate was never in their control to begin with. Now, they stand at the threshold of their own downfall, trapped within the chaos they created, while you remain unmoved, untouched, and unbound by the destruction they set into motion. This is not chance. This is not random. This is the unwavering precision of balance, restoring itself, the inevitable correction of a scale that was tilted by greed, envy, and reckless interference. The ones who stand in alignment cannot be toppled. The ones who walk in truth do not fall. Have you witnessed it yet? Have the very hands that once sought to bring you down begun to tremble under the weight of their own choices?